has not only come back to us, I take bookings from them virtually every week. Every single week they're coming to me, because if they're not coming to our area, they're going to another one, and then I'll go and find an operator in that area.
Payment. So if you go above, say, 28 days, then there's no VAT. So that's something to bear in mind, which some people may miss.
As long as it's a continuous stay.
It has to be continuous. So
best case scenario, they can say yes. Worst case scenario, you are exactly the same position as before. Welcome back to another episode of Property Lunch with Giuseppe. Now, today I have two guests, two friends, I would say, because I met them personally and I love them. And one is Rob and the other one is Claire. Hello, guys. How are you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Very well, thank you.
Good, thank you.
So you're both in the property world. You are both property investors by, let's say, second choice in terms of like it was not in your plans a few years ago, but something happened and I'm going to ask you. And then you decide to go into the property world in a very emotional time. You were pregnant, if I'm not mistaken, Claire, when you decided to push hard to get into property, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we got our first SA property. When was it? It was November 2019. Yeah. So I'd literally just given birth a couple of months before that. So, so we were going through the whole process of finding a property and setting it up while I was heavily pregnant. Yeah. So.
Oh my goodness. So for anyone who's thinking, oh, I'm pregnant, I need to wait until, give birth to start the property journey. Don't do it, because once you give birth, then you have other priorities as well. So whenever you're ready, just do it and you start your property experience, if you don't want to call it property journey. Now, Rob is a doctor, a GP, so you are heavily involved with the whole situation that happened last year and is still going on, but in a milder way now, luckily. And you two are a great team because you complement each other. Now, I'm going to ask you, if that's okay for you, what is that you complement each other?
I try and see where there can be any problems or not, and if I can't find problems, all good. Whilst Claire's more, definitely on the sales, and it can be on that personal touch, where I then try and, so my GP skills come through, but she's very good at sales, so I kind of leave that side to her.
Both things, there is a connection between you two. Both things, you and Claire, you like sales. They both serve people. So probably we give a bad connotation to sale, but in reality, without the sale, you wouldn't have the service. So if you can't sell, you're not serving. And that's why it's important to have both. And you as a doctor serve all the time. You as a salesperson serve all the time. So that is your link.
Yeah, and you know what? Sales comes with a bit of negative stigma. And a lot of people don't like salespeople. But you know what? And it's just a fact of life. People don't like salespeople. But you know what? How it should be is you shouldn't like bad salespeople, because a good salesperson will only ever sell to you if it's going to benefit you, if it's going to do you some good. So
I think everybody don't like to be sold. When you're walking down the street and you find someone with leaflets, they're going to approach you, or with a carpet, with something, they want you to sign a petition, whatever. You suddenly change direction and try to avoid them. There is this kind of bad connotation to salespeople, and we try to avoid because we don't like to be sold. But if we stop there and we listen to them, we may learn some skills.
Yeah, it's like solving people's problems. Same as do at work, same thing in all property. Someone will have a problem. You have to listen to them to understand what their problem is. Sometimes it could be time, sometimes it could be money. So it's just working out what they want.
So with that said, we want to talk about property, and SA is your main business. You also have buy-to-let, so standard buy-to-let investments, but SA is being your signature in your business. You have also other businesses. You have an e-commerce business, but if we focus 2 seconds on the property business, what was the reason why you started?
Well, we really just because we want to serve our children. We want to build a great life for them and give them all the things that we never had. So that's the real driver. And we want to get to the point where you know, the business can run itself without us having to be hands-on all the time, and so that the income can become a bit more passive when we get a lot more time with them. So that's the plan, really. That was the fuel.
Yeah, and it's also so when we first met, Claire was sort of went to work, and it's more with her family. It's more having the time at home. So having kind of our own, say, property business, you can work at home, you can see more of the children. So that's kind of a real benefit you wouldn't get if you say going for a 9-to-5 job, which, so unfortunately I do have to kind of do that, but mine's normally 8 till 7 or 8. Yeah. So, but then there's times where I can then come back. But then we've got the benefit of Claire is, say, at home, so you can actually do more with the children as well.
Yeah, because it's a lot of work staying at home with the children. So it's important as well to time block, to have slots just for properties and blocks just for the children, so you don't mix the two things. Because I'm guilty of this as well. Our tendency is to spend time with the children, then if a message arrives, to check the mobile and says, oh, I need to sort this out. But it's important when you have a family to split the two things and to have family time and work time and fun time. When you started in property, you had a strong motivation. And what was your target when you started in property? What was like I want 10 buy-to-lets, or did you know that you were going into service accommodation, or was just it just happened?
We didn't really know at first. I guess we went to an event, didn't we, that kind of gave an overview of all the different strategies, so we could learn a little bit more about each of them. And we'd already kind of half decided on SA anyway, but that kind of just cemented that. And then we just went from there, really. But our initial target was, I think we wanted to get 10 initially. That target's gone up to 20 now. We've got 7 live at the moment, and we've got 3 more that are currently being refurbished. And I think all of them, by complete coincidence, are all going to be ready exactly the same time. So that's going to be a fun time, setting 3 up all in one go.
Okay, it is. So what when we talk about service accommodation, for anybody that doesn't know what service accommodation is, it's a short-term rental. Let's say, for example, you advertised on booking.com or Airbnb. These are called online travel agencies, OTA, or you can do direct bookings, which are a lot more profitable, but you have to do your own marketing. So the reason why booking.com and Airbnb charge you is because they do the marketing for you. But then if you have an issue, booking.com says goodbye. Airbnb at least try to help you. But on direct bookings, that you are in control of the guests.
Yeah. Yes. And they keep coming back and back and back.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what customer service. So there's lots of people doing service accommodation, but as you say, you can do it well, or we can do it okay. And we always try and exceed. So it's basically, it's in there, it's service accommodation. So we try and excel on our service. So people have that kind of special experience. And that's why people come back, because we kind of go over and above to make sure that their needs are catered for. And that's why we get lots of repeat customers. Yeah,
we try to go one notch above. So we look at the competition, what they're doing, and then we ask ourselves, what can we do to make it that more attractive, to get the booking over somebody else, and also to make it more profitable as well. And people will pay. There's a market out there of people who want really high-end accommodation, and very often on Airbnb or booking.com, there's loads of mediocres everywhere. But the really premium stuff is kind of few and far between. And also, when we've done a couple of different courses from a couple of different companies on SA, we did one each, and we took learnings from each of them. And invariably, what both of these courses taught us was, go and find a 1-bed or a 2-bed apartment in a city centre. So, basically the market is saturated with 1- and 2-bed apartments in city centres. So what we've done is we've said, okay, let's find a 4 or a 5-bed house in the suburbs. Less party issues. You don't have issues with noisy neighbours on the floor above if it's an apartment. And also where you make your money in SA is for having bigger numbers. So if you've got a 5-bed house that can accommodate 9 people, and you get a booking for 9 people, that can be really lucrative.
Also, because we try and save at hotels. In hotels you can have concierge and that. So we try and ask us if questions. Can we make this stay extra special for you? So we've done before where we put in someone's anniversary, So when they arrived, they already had flowers and chocolates and
card,
a card and everything on that written. So it's more of a surprise, but we try and go that one step more, and that's where it's all.
No, that's great reviews.
Yeah, I've done the same. I love when they say, "Oh, it's my birthday." There was a post on Facebook I've read where they called it a cheeky guest. When they say, "Oh, it's my birthday, I hope you can make it special." Now, in that case, the guest was asking for something, and the host replied, "Of course I can do that. Just tell me the budget, and I'll arrange it for you." So that defeats a little bit the kind of spontaneity for giving the service and the present, let's say. But in my case, they've not been cheeky. They just asked to say, "Oh, it's my birthday, I'm really excited," or "It's my 25th wedding anniversary." They don't ask for anything, but always make sure they have something there when they arrive, and they love it.
Has not only come back to us, I take bookings from them virtually every week. Every single week they're coming to me, because if they're not coming to our area, they're going to another one, and then I'll go and find an operator in that area and take the booking and take 10% commission. And that's one of the things we're doing as well as a sideline is we're growing like a contractor bookings agency for SA bookings.
So we help them with the problem. We have other operators who may not be full, and then plus contractors, they're more safe. So that's how we're helping the community.
Contractors are great. They don't mind paying VAT, which is brilliant because you add it on top, and because they're VAT registered, and you know, they're out first thing in the morning, they're back at night. All they want to do is watch the telly and go to bed.
They've even fixed someone's house. They had a problem, and they went in and thought, "Don't worry, we'll fix it for you."
Yeah. This is what you've been doing during lockdown, actually. This was a question I wanted to ask you. When you started your SA business, the first lockdown, 23rd of March 2020, there was panic all over the place because lots of cancellations from the main OTAs. And people start panicking, start to sell their businesses because they say, "I'm not getting anything." Now, what you did instead was getting more bookings, because your main business was to get contractors, so direct bookings. When you got contractors in, you had a higher demand because, of course, there was no tourists. All the SAs were shut because of not tourists. They were relying only on OTA. But you were growing. You had a good marketing campaign, and you had a lot more bookings that you could host. So what you've done, you started doing, passing them over to other SA providers, and then suddenly light bulb, this could be a business. Because it's true, you didn't consider it at the beginning, but with challenge comes opportunity, and you went through that challenge and you spotted the opportunity, and that's why you started now providing contractors for other hosts as well. So well done on that one, and thank you for that service as well.
I'm going to say, whether there's a gap in the market and there's a need, then it's just finding a solution. And we saw hosts suffering, and we thought, well, actually, there's still work going on, but these people don't know how to access maybe the market, because Airbnb were all just kind of giving refunds, actually blocking people from booking completely. We said, well, actually, there's still business going on. How do we kind of service the needs of the many? And that's how it kind of came around.
Yeah, and this is where the sales, I think, comes in handy as well, because people say to me, "How did you get that 8-month booking that you got in your property?" And I was like, "Well, we just walked onto a building site, didn't we? We drove out, Rob was in the car, the kids were in the back, I got out, had a word with them, and then we got an 8-month booking out of it." And it's that simple. You just got to be personable and not afraid of asking people, because he was desperate. He was stuck in a hotel, 4 walls. He really loves to cook, couldn't cook because he was in a hotel, and he bit my hand off to so there's opportunities out there if you go and get them.
And the worst thing is they say no, and you're like, okay, that's fine.
That's fine.
That's the worst thing.
Pick yourself up, carry on.
You had the no at the beginning. I always say this: if you don't do it, you already have a no as a default. So best case scenario, they can say yes. Worst case scenario, you are exactly the same position as before.
Yeah, and remember as well, the first property is always the hardest. We took ages to set up our first property, didn't we? Yeah. Far too long. But it's because we didn't know what we were doing. It was the first time we've ever done it. But now we're getting more and more efficient. We know what we're doing.
We did one in a day.
We did.
We
a couple of
actually,
weeks ago, didn't
yeah.
we?
So
It was only
basically,
a flat though.
we agreed. Well, no, it's one we did. Eric's, that's one. So
Oh, yeah,
basically, we got the contract
Three-bed house.
signed from the for rent to rent on the Friday evening. On the Saturday, we went and just bought the stuff, and on Sunday we set it up, and the guest was in on Monday.
Good. That's good.
Yeah.
Where do you operate?
So Birmingham area.
Birmingham area. Okay. So if people around Birmingham is interested in this, then they know at least where you are. Another question I want to ask you is, are all your properties owned or are they on a rent-to-rent basis?
We've got a mixture, and that's mainly because we want to mitigate risk. So I remember when we first started, people were saying, oh, you need more rent to rents, you need more rent to rent. So our first was a rent to rent. And that was the advice, go and get a load of rent to rents. And I thought, hang on a minute, leverage. And thank goodness, you don't want to over leverage yourself. And thank goodness I thought that, because, March came, so 4 months after we'd launched our first property, and then it was illegal to go and stay in another property. So what we did was we thought we'll grow on a ratio. We'll have a certain ratio of rent to rents to management. So now we've got 2 rent to rent properties and 5 management. And the next 3 that are coming on board being refurbished at the moment, they're all management as well. So we're going to be due for another rent to rent after that.
Okay.
But we'll just assess each on its own merits.
There's some way you go, actually, this is a great property, we could get this to work. If the numbers stack up, we go, yeah, rent to rent, because we know we can market that.
Yeah.
There's somewhere we go, it's a bit harder. We can still get it, but actually what the landlord's asking for rent makes it too much of a risk. But we say to them, look, we can still get this to work, but you'll take more, and that's fine, we're happy with that. So they're still kind of getting that positive.
But then Rob's got a buy-to-let property as well, and that's just currently we were going to make that an SA, but then when coronavirus, when COVID hit, then we were like, no, we'll keep it safe and we'll stick a tenant in there, and he's still there now, or they're still there now.
Yeah.
But potentially that could be an SA in the future, and that would be useful for some tax relief going forward, if we did that. So
you're surprising where you can get these things from. So one of the landlords we're working for, it came from a property we were looking to buy, and the guy wanted too much, it needs a lot of work, and the guy said, I'm sorry, it's a no, but thank you. And we just spun it. We said, well, no, how about we run this as an SA, you do it up. And that, so we went through all the figures, and he ended up having a big meeting with him. He actually came back, he actually put off one of his other meetings to come back and see us. And then actually, because of how we operate, he actually introduced us to this other landlord, and who's bringing on his third property with us. So that was a no, but actually we said, well, actually, how else can we help you? And actually it's turned into a massive yes. And he's actually got another property we've just been to see, which that's currently being bought, but that's a huge property. So that could be another lucrative. But he says,
we went to see it, and we drove down the road, and we were like, oh my God, look at this road. It was like Millionaires Row. There were like mansions everywhere. I'm like, which one's it for me?
but yeah, he just said, actually, I've heard all from my friends who I introduced to about what you're doing with him. I want a piece of action. And now he's buying this property, and he'll be doing it up. And so we've given him the specs of what need to be done. And actually he's going to do that, and then we'll get that one as well. So that'll be another property, but later in the year.
So there's opportunities everywhere. Now, how many times have you put an offer in and they've said no, and that's just it, and there's no more contact, no more anything, but actually that can potentially turn into a big opportunity. So I said we've got 2 properties with that guy at the moment that he referred us on to, and we've got the 3rd one on the way. This past month, it was £1,350 that we earned through his 2 properties. For 2 properties that we don't own, a 5-bed house and a 1 apartment. It's just crazy.
Yeah, that's the beauty of controlling property. So, and you're now starting to buy them as well. So you have more of a mixed strategy, mixed model. Now, if you think 2 seconds on the long booking that you had, do you ask for the full amount of the booking in advance, or do you split it?
Yeah, so with this one, it was a company booking, and I just had I had a conversation with them, and of course you try and get the full amount up front. That's the first port of call, but invariably they're going to say, look, cash flow, and we agreed on a monthly payment. And so the guests wouldn't stay until we'd had the payment for that forthcoming period. So they'd be paying in advance, but we agreed monthly.
with say monthly payments. So if you go above say 28 days, then there's no VAT. So that's something to bear in mind, which some people may miss.
As long as it's a continuous stay.
It has to be continuous. So if you have the, like say 4 days a week over say 28 days, then actually it will still be VAT. But a continuous stay more than 28 days, it's zero VAT. So that's what a lot of people miss.
Right. This is interesting. Could you explain a little bit about this 28-day with the VAT?
So I mean, with this, you're when you go with hospitality, that is, if you have a continuous booking, this is the government's, so you can go on the government website for this. It's not just something we're kind of found hidden. But you just have to read up. So when it's 28 days or more, then actually it becomes VAT exempt on the stay. So that's important when you charge your guests. You could get longer bookings by saying actually to them, by the way, by going on a longer continuous, actually the VAT drops off. So actually that's saving them money. And you know, the VAT's a moment 5% for a paying guest. It'll be 12.5% 1st of October, and then 20% again in April.
Yeah.
So,
but remember, Giuseppe, there's different models of VAT as well. So it depends which model you're on, right?
Yeah.
The one that we're on is 28 days and then 0% VAT, but it does vary depending on what model you're on. How
your company set up and how you're paying VAT.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Thank you for that. The audience will be thrilled to know this. So just the last question for you is, what is your plan for the future?
So, well, with the SA business, we're looking to get to 20 properties by next May. So there you go, it's out there now, accountability and all that. 20 properties next May, 2022. And we're looking at doing some rent to buys as well.
Yeah. So I've kind of released some equity, and we're kind of looking at properties, and then again, due diligence, that's the key thing. If a deal's a deal, but you've got to make sure you do your groundwork and look at the numbers. So that's kind of one aspect on there, and then we just it's wherever there's a opportunity. So one of the landlords is also developing, so then looking to maybe do a short-term investment with them, so I can learn a bit more as well. So there's on that side, but it's more about building up. So the SA company, where basically at some point we may even look to maybe sell that as a business, but it's an automised, so that someone else can take that on. But also getting our own properties so that we can then long-term gain from that.
I really like the idea of building up businesses quickly and selling them to build wealth, because, you know, when you sell a business, depending on what state it's in, you might be getting a ×3 or ×4, possibly even ×5 multiple of net profit when you sell it, which is pretty amazing to get 5 times net profit of 1 year's net profit all in one go, and then just reinvest it. And that's kind of the plan with the e-commerce side of things as well. So I've got that going on in the background. But what we're really looking for is to get some financial stability from multiple different streams of income. And then we're looking to hopefully become more and more passive as time goes on, which is the main goal, really.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you very much for coming to the show. It's been a pleasure for me to see you again. And I'm sure the audience will be really, really amazed about your progress and the information that you shared. So thank you, Rob. Thank you, Claire. And I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Giuseppe.
Thanks, Giuseppe. Take care.
Bye-bye.